Welcome to Cost News Digest. Here are the quickfire headlines. Amazon Connect reduces telephony pricing across multiple geos. Amazon Connect has reduced prices for Peru in US East 1 and US East 2 regions and reduced outbound dialing rates across European countries in the Frankfurt and London regions. These changes include reductions to Peru of up to 55% cost reduction and across the EU of up to 13%.
Amazon CloudWatch logs have infrequent access, which is a new log class for cost-efficient consolidation of all of your logs natively. Alongside this, we also have log anomaly detection and pattern analysis now available so you can review what is happening in your logs.
AWS Cost Management now provides purchase recommendations for Amazon MemoryDB reserved nodes. Effective now, you can access recommendations in Cost Explorer to help you purchase Amazon MemoryDB reservations, which allow you to save up to 55% over on demand.
The Amazon S3 Express One Zone storage class is a purpose-built to deliver fast cloud object storage for performance-critical applications, improves data access by speeds of 10 times, and reduced request costs by 50%.
We've announced a new Amazon EFS Archive storage class. Amazon EFS Archive is a new storage class that is cost optimized for long-lived file data, which is accessed a few times a year or less.
And Amazon Athena uses cost-based optimization to enhance your query performance based on table and column statistics. Now, that is it for the headlines. Let's dive into the FinOps announcements from reInvent 2023.
All right. So we had a pretty exciting reInvent in terms of FinOps announcements, and we'll go through a couple of our favorites today. The first one I want to highlight is the Unified Billing and Cost Management Console. Essentially, now you have all the buttons exactly where you want the buttons to be, which is really exciting. You don't have to pop in and out of Cost Explorer and in and out of Billing Console anymore. Your entire menu is available right when you log in on that Unified Billing and Cost Management Console kind of internal portal. You can navigate in and out of the old reports that you used to see when you went into Cost Explorer and everything available in Billing Console. It's really great. It's very, very convenient and a really great UI change that we're excited about.
Yeah, it's one of those things I didn't know I needed until they did it. Like,
right.
I remember, I know that when I click into Cost Explorer and it goes somewhere else, and it's done that forever. So you're kind of like, this is just how it is. And then when it changed, I was just like, this is nicer. Thank you guys for making this a little bit nicer on me.
I will say UI changes when you're doing a demo or when you're showing something on a call or something like that are sometimes pretty jarring. And one of the builder sessions that I was doing at reInvent involved a demo the day that this launched. And it took me about 2 seconds to go from, oh my gosh, everything's different to, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So that's positive. It's really, really hard to say anything less positive than that.
Yeah, a good tip. If anybody watching, you do this presentation for senior leadership or any people in your organization, make sure you go and understand where the changes are so that you're not sitting there for 2 minutes doing what Savannah just said, being like, where are the buttons? Like, go and familiarize yourself, because your muscle memory would be like, oh, this has changed. So we can move this on. Sticking in this kind of area, we've also released the Cost Optimization Hub. So this is in the Billing Console, and you can enable this. So go and enable it as soon as you like, as soon as you can. And it's got 15 types of cost optimization recommendations with rightsizing, graviton, idle resources, savings plans, and regions. It's one of those things, it's like consolidating all of your optimization opportunities into one place. And it's got that single pane of glass thing going on, so you can actually assess it without having to jump to all different accounts. And kind of, especially if you're looking for low-hanging fruit and a range of optimizations, going in, exporting this data will give you a kind of central place to look. So another thing, go and check that out. Enable it. You do have to enable it, you have to opt in, and it takes a little bit of time to propagate. So give yourself a bit of time to let that work out, and then you can start to find some opportunities that maybe you didn't know about before.
Yeah. I think one of the most common questions that we get from folks who are kind of starting their optimization journey is, how do I stack rank the low-hanging fruit and see everything that's out there? And we've got kind of a couple ways to think about approaching it, but Cost Optimization Hub gives us a unified view to show all of that in one screen, which is really exciting and gives you an idea of what's out there and where to start.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the ones that I'm personally most excited about is Cost Explorer. It provides a considerable amount more historical data now. We've got 38 months in arrears instead of just the trailing 13 that we used to have. That you also do have to opt into. It is a free feature, but you do have to go turn it on within the Cost Explorer preferences. But that's really exciting. It's a feature that customers have been asking for a very long time. And I think one of the more exciting pieces of it for anybody who has kind of a fiscal year or a cyclical business is it lets you compare year over year. If you have seasonality to your workloads, you can now look at an entire cycle and 2 entire cycles of what that looks like within Cost Explorer without having to use any sort of other visualization tool or go to a different data source.
Yeah, having 3 years worth of data is just nice, especially for anybody who is probably like us, who've been working in the cloud for a long time. You probably have been there longer than a year. Amazon has been around for a long time. And so having that kind of trends, especially if you have seasonal trends, and if your application or your company works maybe you have a lot more demand in around the Christmas time like it is now, or if you have more summer demand, seeing that and seeing how those kind of can affect your forecasting and your planning is going to be so useful to see if you have any trends over the years. And maybe you'll even figure out that you do have trends over seasonal trends that you can take into consideration when doing this forecasting. But what were you going to say?
The other Cost Explorer feature that I'm really excited about is resource level granularity for more services. You don't have to rely on only the CUR to see things down to the resource level now. Once you enable that in Cost Explorer, you will be able to see down to that resource level. So instance level, S3 bucket level, et cetera, within Cost Explorer. And this pairs nicely with one of the really exciting organizations announcements that we just came out with at reInvent this year, which is Resource Explorer now has a multi-account view. So if you're unfamiliar with Resource Explorer, it is exactly what it sounds like in the name. You enable it and it will build an index of everything now within your management family. And then you can search for a resource directly in the console search bar. So the way that you can kind of think of these two integrating and pairing together is now that you have that resource level granularity in Cost Explorer, you can find those resource IDs. You can visually see, okay, this S3 bucket is really going wild, or this EC2 instance has been running for a really long time. Maybe we don't need it running still, and it's consuming quite a lot. Instead of having to kind of filter through all of your accounts and kind of go through all the different service menus in console to find those resources, to turn them off or kind of identify them, you can turn on the Resource Explorer integration, search for one of those resources, and jump right to it in console. So it really helps kind of that speed and the agility of identifying, going to actually doing the work and cleaning it up. So very excited about both of those improvements.
Yeah, it's Vanna's favorite tools there. I think you're right. This suite,
the best.
The best enabler. The thing about the speed is definitely going to be a big priority, especially if you are doing any deep dives with account teams or kind of account owners, and you're looking at stuff and you're like, okay, where is this? Or even like senior leadership is a good example where they might clock and say, well, someone might even show that resource level view and they're like, well, whose is this? What is this instance? What is that thing? And then immediately you can go and find it rather than having to trawl through, like you said, filtering different groups, different accounts. You can just go straight through it and see what's going on. Yeah. Different regions.
The regions always get me.
All the regions. Awesome. Okay. So while we're speaking about EC2 instances, let's jump into the Compute Optimizer one, which I think is a big one. We had some more instances being added that are going to be options on, which is a classic. I feel like every time we do the show, there's always new instances that have been added. So it's kind of like expected from that team now rather than a news thing. But the big things are 32-day look back period option, which is great because it's just longer. Like we just said, trend analysis, seeing more historical data is always a benefit. And you can now set thresholds for your CPU and like CPU headroom and different thresholds for your right sizing recommendations. So it gives you more power in defining what a right sizing recommendation looks like, which is super powerful. I've had people ask me this recently, and I was like, I don't know. And then this came out. I was like, oh, look, you could do this thing. So definitely check it out. Have a play with it, especially if you are one of these people who think that's not the right sizing recommendation isn't for me, and you've kind of brushed it off as something that maybe isn't exactly right for what you need. I would go and take another look at it and see if you can adjust. You don't have to adjust. A kind of caveat with that is people think, oh, now I have the power, I should make a change. The recommendations that this team provide are based on machine learning. They're based on time and analysis that have been happening across your EC2 instances and all the data they have. So don't feel like you have to make a change. But if you do want to, you can now do this.
I think one of the other really exciting pieces of functionality that Compute Optimizer launched, like kind of in this reInvent package, is now we have the ability to set instance family preferences in what those recommendations spit out. So if you have a standard RI fleet that's kind of hanging around and you have kind of a locked in situation there, you can make sure that anything that's getting spit out by Compute Optimizer matches that SKU, matches that instance family. If you are a company that has some kind of restrictions around what we can approve or not and has like a preferred set of instance families, you can configure that as well. So it's not going to be spitting out recommendations for things that you don't already use in your business or don't want to encourage your developers to adopt, which is really powerful if you have any of those limitations or any of those preferences.
And if you purchase instant savings plans, now it's been a while since I've thought about instant savings plans, do they go off of family as well?
Yep.
So if you purchase instant savings plans for a type of family, you could suggest those recommendations so that you don't lose out on your savings.
Yep, there we go. Exactly.
Okay, on to our last one.
Yeah, so kind of a twofer with this one. We've announced something called data exports, which kind of replaces that cost and usage report menu that you used to see in Billing Console. What this allows you to do is configure some of that kind of underlying cost and usage report data that gets exported into your data set. So you can think of it as pruning down a certain column set, pruning down a certain kind of variety of data that you want to look at, and really customize the cost and usage report a little bit instead of just having one size fits all large CUR data set with a kind of preset column set and preset data schema for you. So there is a little bit more customization if you would like to make a kind of lighter lift, smaller version of any of that cost and usage report data.
Yeah, especially if you're one of those people who have tons and tons of spend and maybe like every single different type of resource there ever is. Maybe you just want a little version you want to share off to some other people. I think that's super useful. And then also in the exports, you can now deploy a Quicksite dashboard straight from the export console. So if you are interested in learning more about your spend and diving into it with a little bit more granular information that you get from the cost and use report in a Quicksite dashboard, you can now do that straight from the billing console. And we're actually going to go through a quick demo of that right now.
All right, so we're in my console. As you can see, really, really big spender. But I'll be walking through how to kind of get to that data export functionality we talked about, and what that Quicksite dashboard easy deploy looks like. So I'll pop into billing and cost management here. Kind of everything that you're used to seeing on the homepage. But as we kind of mentioned before, look at how many menu options we have on the side now. We can pop into Cost Explorer. We've got savings and commitments, cost optimization hub. It's all there. It's all in one place. Really exciting.
I love how it's got new as well, like Cost Explorer new. And it's like, I saw that, I was like, wait, what? And it's like, did I just...
The highlights are helpful.
Yeah.
But we'll focus on data exports for now. So this is essentially where your cost and usage report option used to be. As you can see right away, we've got those legacy CUR exports that I had before the transition. I've also created an export newly to deploy the dashboard just to kind of see how it works. It functions roughly the same as you would expect. You can just use that create button to walk through the workflow. But the really exciting part is when you set it up and select that cost and usage dashboard export type. After it propagates, you have to let it run for 24 hours to make sure that everything's kind of pulled together and you get that first code drop. You've got this live link in that export type that takes you right into that Quicksite dashboard that you've essentially set up and deployed. And
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
A little bit to make sure it's not an eye test. But right away, we've got essentially everything that you're used to seeing in a lot of those cloud intelligence dashboards right from the console in a portal without kind of any of the deployment headaches of having to run a CloudFormation template.
Amazing.
Sorry, Steph, go ahead.
Okay, so questions. You've got a lot of like months of historical data. Did you have to, is that because you had a cost and use report already that had that historical data? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So we've got to have the curve before. So it's not like it replaces the, so previously, if you were to just deploy one of the other dashboards or something like that, you'd have to do a request to get previous histories of data. So you would still have to do that kind of process to see historical spend.
I believe so. I didn't have to do anything special for this one, but I've also had occur in this account since I think like 2018. So if you're questioning it, give it a go. And if you need a data refresh, create a support case and request one.
Perfect. And just to go back onto the exports page on the billing console, just want to say this again. This is where your curves are now, because I didn't realize this and I hadn't really thought about it because I came in here looking for the cost and use report tab that no longer exists. It's just data exports. This is where you should go.
Yep. And all of those old curves will be flagged as that legacy curve export here as well. So keep in mind, that's where it is.
Awesome. So I think that's all good. Good little explanation of where everything is. Perfect. Okay, so that is it. That's the summary of all of our announcements, mainly focused on reInvent. So a little bit of homework for everybody out there. You guys need to enable a couple of features. You've got Cost Optimization Hub, the look back on Cost Explorer, the resources in Cost Explorer, and also try and create that dashboard. But that's it, Savannah. That's all of our announcements, right?
Yep. Pretty easy. You just have to go in and click enable on some stuff and create another data export. But definitely get those features turned on so you can start playing around with them. It's a great Christmas present.
And on that is it for this year. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. And as a last thing, I'm going to just say, have a great Christmas, have a great holidays, and we'll see you next year. And a bit of money. See ya.
Welcome to Cost News Digest. Here are the quick fire headlines. Amazon Connect produces telephony pricing across South Africa. Oh my gosh. Sorry. That was so bad. I can't read.
Okay, let's start that again.